Hello, my name is Brizeth Silva, and today I will be issuing a legislative proposal for Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland, representing the 10th Congressional District of Washington. The first thing we're going to do is go over a district overview and then talk about the committee assignments that Congresswoman Strickland has been appointed to, as well as issuing what I think would be a good legislative initiative for Strickland to kind of to make sure that her chances of re-election are increased. So the first thing we're going to do is go over Washington's 10th district and its demographics. Here we have a picture of the 10th congressional district, and we do have a population of about 700,000 people, which kind of estimates to 931 people per square mile. Washington's 10th district is comprised of three major counties: Mason County, Thurston County, and Pierce County. Over here we have Pierce, we have Thurston over here, and Mason up here. Mason up here, like we said before, in the north. Pierce County over here. It's a pretty big portion of the district, and the biggest portion, Thurston County. In its gender sense, we have the census reporter reporting that the 10th congressional district is comprised of about half male and half female. By age, we have here ages 0 to 9, 10 to 19, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59, 60 to 69, 70 to 79, 80 or more. As you can see here, more than 50% of our district is comprised of the younger ages. 0 to 9 does have a big portion of our population. What I most saw interesting here was the 29% of ages 20 to 39, which is a relatively young constituency. Here we have a graph kind of depicting the Washington 10th district by race and ethnicity. We have 64% of whites comprising here in the district. We have 7% of Asian population, 13% of Hispanic population, 6% of Black population. We have natives comprising of 1%, Islander comprising of 2%, and people who identify with 2 or more ethnicities comprising of 7%. And this is all also gathered from the census reporter. Another key issue or key point I wanted to make was the amount of veterans we have in our district. We have 76,000 vets, 64 of males and 64K of males, 12K of females. Relatively large number of veterans. We'll see why that's a little bit more important later on. As far as industries in the district, we have our highest 3, which are healthcare comprising of 14.3%, retail 12.2%, and government 11.6%. We also have here 4th, 5th, and 6th, 7th, and 8th. We're seeing pretty much a decline over here by real estate, information, agriculture, utilities, oil, gas, and mining management. But our big ones pretty much are healthcare, retail, government, manufacturing, education, construction, hospitality. So our biggest industry here in the district is healthcare and social assistance, with 14.3%, or about 44,000 people working in this industry. Our biggest counties that are employing these people are Roy County, which is in Pierce County, the bigger County of um, the 10th Congressional District. We have First County, which is also in Pierce, Summit View County, which is in Thurston. These are relatively where most of our healthcare and social assisted employers and employees are in the district. Our second here is retail. We have about 12.2% or about 37,000 people working in this in the retail sector of the district. We have North Yelm County, Frederickson County, and Summit County comprising of the largest percentages of the retail jobs around the district. Our third and last biggest industry here in the district is government. We have 11.6% or about 36,000 people working in government jobs. We have North Fort Lewis County, and McCord County, um, comprising of a huge portion of government jobs in the county. They're all above 40%. North County reached about half of the population in North Fort Lewis County is working in government jobs. The next thing we do want to look at is committee assignments overview. Here we're going to be looking at the assignments that the Congresswoman has been assigned to, and kind of seeing which ones will or will not kind of aid in our legislative proposal that we're going to indulge in here shortly. We have House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. This House committee has jurisdiction of over all modes of transportation, including aviation, maritime, waterborne transportation, highways, bridges, mass transit, and railroads, of course. The committee also has jurisdiction over many other aspects of national infrastructure, such as clean water, wastewater management, transport resources by pipeline, flood damage, management of federally owned real estate and public buildings, the development of economically depressed rural and urban areas, disaster preparedness and response, and the hazardous materials transportation. They have 6 subcommittees, of which the Congresswoman is also part of in 2. Aviation, Coast Guard and Maritime Transportation, Economic Development, Public Buildings and Emergency Management, Highways and Transit, Railroads, Pipelines and Hazardous Materials, Water Resources, and the Environment. The House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee is chaired by Peter A. DeFazio, who is the House Representative of Oregon's 4th District. Here's a list of some of his legislation that he has sponsored over the past few months. In the 170th Congress, we have the Wall Street Tax Act of 2021, Southwestern Oregon Watershed and Salmon, IRS enhancement and tax gap reduction. He also proposed to amend the Federal Water Pollution Control Act. And the reason why I put some of these on here is just to kind of give an insight into what the legislative proposal is going to go into in a little bit. The subcommittee on railroads, pipelines, and hazardous materials is one of the subcommittees that Congresswoman Strickland is a part of. Here, the chairman is Donald M. Payne Jr. from North New Jersey's 10th Congressional District. The subcommittee on railroads, pipelines, and hazardous materials has jurisdiction over economic and safety regulation of railroads and the agencies that administer these regulations. The subcommittee also is administered by the 5-member Surface Transportation Board, and this agency also can address national emergencies that have to do with the nation's railroad system. The second subcommittee that our Congresswoman is a part of is the Subcommittee on Highways and Transit. Here, the subcommittee is chaired by Greg Stanton, that was just recently appointed to that chair. The Subcommittee on Highways and Transit is responsible for the development of national surface transportation policy, construction and improvement of highway and transit facilities, implementation of highway and transit safety programs, research activities, the regulation of motor vehicle operations. Um, the subcommittee does also have jurisdiction over all of these federal aid transportation programs, over these U.S. Department of Transportation programs, such as the Federal Aid Highway Program, Federal Transit Programs, Highway Safety Grants, Commercial Motor Vehicle Safety Programs, excuse me, and Surface Transportation Research as well. The second House committee that the representative is a part of is the House Committee on Armed Services. Here the committee is chaired by Adam Smith, who is another fellow resident here in Washington, representing the 9th Congressional District. Two substantial legislation that he has sponsored is H.R. 2603, which established the policy of the United States regarding the no first use of nuclear weapons, and H.R. 1947 to provide rental assistance under the Housing Choice Voucher Program in the Department of Housing and Urban Development. In the House Committee on Armed Services does have jurisdiction over all Army and nearly all Air Force acquisition programs, national defense strategy, national military strategy, and related defense policy issues. In the House Committee of Armed Services, the Congresswoman also it serves for the Subcommittee on Military Personnel. Here, the subcommittee is chaired by Jackie Spear, which is California's 4th District Representative. The subcommittee here has jurisdiction over the Department of Defense policy and programs and accounts related to military personnel and their families. Secondly, the next subcommittee that Strickland does serve is also the Subcommittee on Readiness, which is under the House Committee of Armed Services as well. Here, the chairman is chaired by John Garamendi, who is California's 3rd Congressional District Representative. The Subcommittee on Readiness has jurisdiction over Department of Defense policy and programs and accounts related to military readiness, training, logistics, and maintenance. So, and kind of going into the fact of the committees that the Congresswoman Strickland is a part of, I think the only one here that can kind of help and look into the legislative proposal that is going to be here announced shortly is the first House committee that was presented, just because they have jurisdiction over a huge amount of things, that including environmental change and climate change. So the legislative initiative that we have here is that's going to be announced shortly. First, what I want to look into is the important issues that Washington State Legislature is already kind of debating. We have 3 important issues that kind of seem clear in Washington's legislature. We have COVID-19, which is obviously a very pressing issue still, hurting many families and affecting many families all over Washington even a year later. We have the opioid crisis and clean energy. These issues were looked from Governor Jay Inslee's website. So the legislative initiative for Maryland Strickland that we wanted to kind of look into from Washington State Legislature, just to kind of see what was already important in Washington that will kind of boost the confidence of Strickland, not only her competence but her popularity, and as well as with the demographics that are already presented in Washington's 10th district. I wanted to um, ensure that a clean energy bill might be able to do the job that we're looking for, basically. Why do I think a clean energy bill is good and is a good bill to kind of base Strickland's next campaign on, is because we do have a democratic constituency, we have young demographics, and there is a national concern for climate change. The United Nations Development Program did do collaboration with the University of Oxford Department of Sociology, and they came out with a report titled "The People's Climate Vote." This report has 1.2 million respondents. It's the largest survey of public opinion on climate change ever done. The results span about 50 countries, covering about 56% of the world's population. And what the People's Climate Vote found was that nearly two-thirds, which is 64% of the people in all the 50 states that were surveyed, believe that climate change is a global emergency. So not only is it a national emergency, it is a global. I'm sorry. Not only is it a national concern, it is a global problem that people globally think should be addressed in their governments. The United States falls, and this is also from the United Nations Development Program, that the survey. The United States falls. 65% of Americans believe in climate change. That's about 200 million people. And here we have a list of all the other ones that fall on top of us. We have Russia, 65% as well, Chile, Egypt. We have Canada, who's 75%, France, 77%, Japan, Italy. Basically, most of our world powers. We have the UK, Italy, Japan, France, Germany, Canada, Australia. So I think even we are the last of the world powers that falls below the list. But what I also wanted to look at was how climate change was perceived here in Washington. And according to the Yale Climate Opinion Maps conducted in 2020, 75% of Washington believes climate change is happening. That's about 5 million people in the Washington state. Now, I wanted to look a little bit further. And what about in our district, District 10? Climate change in our district. Here are the facts that was gathered from the Yale Climate Opinion Map. 71% of Washington Congressional District 10 believes climate change is happening. 65% are worried about global warming. 59% thinks Congress should do something about global warming. 86% thinks we should fund research into renewable energy sources. 67% thinks we should impose carbon tax on fossil fuel companies. 51% thinks global warming should be a priority for the next Congress. The next Congress is the goal here. And half of our district believes that we should be talking about it. That's why I thought it was an important issue. It's important, it's popular, it's moral, it's us wanting to take care of the environment. I think it's not a bad way to go. I think there could be worse legislative initiatives to base this on, and I think climate change right now in our context is one of the best ones. The reason I put educational attainment here in this part of the presentation is because educated people are more likely to kind of believe into climate change. Not that there's not to believe, but to accept the science behind climate change. Here in Washington District 10, we have 37% that have some type of college, 18% that has a bachelor's degree, and 10% that has already completed a post-grad institution. The next point that I wanted to make was that Washington is a Democratic state. I gathered two sources that kind of said how and in what direction Washington has been going for the last couple of years. As of 2000, Washington was considered a swing state, but from and until 1880 to 1980 to 1990, Republicans were winning 58% of the races. However, since 1992, Democrats have won 77% of those races, and it just continues to keep going. It hasn't changed since that year. The Seattle Times surveyed that 52% of our adults in the area, which is about 1.2 million people, say that they're Democrats or that they lean Democratic. And that's just a percentage of the entire population of 18 and up, not just registered voters. And in the last two elections, Democratic advantage has averaged about 16 points. So it is fair to say that Washington State has been projecting Democratic numbers for a while, and I think a big scandal or something monumental would have to change that. I don't see it changing in anytime soon. Thirdly, why this legislative initiative, why I think it's important now, is because we do have a very big younger a younger constituency that is growing bigger. Not just that, that is in light of the things that are happening around the world, becoming more invested into the democratic process, which means that they'll be more likely to go to the polls. We're still seeing what it's gonna look like in the next election after Trump, but I think it's fair to say that young voters are holding Biden very. Votes mobilize. What I'm trying to say is that young voters already saw it firsthand. What happens when votes get mobilized in such big numbers and in such a big election that had a lot to that had many risks. Um, the young voters in the 2020 results with the national turnout said that the estimate was about 53 to 56 projection of total votes casted. We have just in 2016, 19 million people voted. I think it's safe to say that many more voted in 2020, and in 2021, we're gonna see just a steady incline on young voters participating at the ballots. The three issues influencing young voters is environment and climate change, racism, and healthcare access and affordability. Getting out the vote. 51% of other youth try to convince other youths to vote. 70% of conversation was talking about political issues or elections. Young people have the numbers and enthusiasm to be electoral force, and that's just not in that November. I think we're gonna continue to see it happening over and over and over again. The political players that we're also gonna take in mind have to do with people not only in Washington but also outside of Washington influencing the process that are happening in Washington. We have here our House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and our House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Of course, they're going to be instrumental into passing a legislative initiative that has to do with climate change. We didn't see much progress before with the Green New Deal that was proposed by AOC, but I think this time there will have to be some changes to kind of get it on the ballot, or not. I'm sorry, not on the ballot, but on the floor to be actually decided, not just voted on. That was, yeah, that was very horrible to see when the Green New Deal had 0 votes. But I think um, with a different plan, I think we'll be able to get it on the floor. Some political allies that I have noted here is Peter A. DeFazio, who is also the chairperson of the first house, which I think is going to be very instrumental in drafting the bill, and drafting it and informing it and informing it and making sure that the things that we propose is actually feasible and we can actually put those regulations in place. In HR 1915, he proposed to amend the Federal Water Pollution Control Act to reauthorize certain water pollution control programs, to, like stated, control water pollution and for other purposes. We have AOC and Bernie Sanders, who are big champions in the climate change movement, and who I think not only are they Congress people, and now I think they're political figures, political idols that many young voters look to, despite Bernie Sanders' age and despite AOC's younger age. I think the fact that Bernie Sanders, now a senior, and AOC, a relatively young congresswoman, have these ideas, share ideas like these, I think that radiates a lot of kind of how important this issue is, because it's an issue that is able to concern people of all ages, of all ethnicities, because we're all living here, we're all living in the same place, we're living in the same earth. In this slide, I want to talk about popular culture and how it can help our initiative. We have Mark Ruffalo, who's a renowned activist and actor. He says no other generation will be called upon so extremely and immediately to be part of a so big and monumental a task. It is an exciting time to be alive. And he says this about climate change because he has done many speeches about it. He believes that this generation are going to have to be the ones that has to do something about it. Basically, we have to do something about it. We also have Jessica Alba and Leonardo DiCaprio, who are big climate change activists as well. We have Leonardo DiCaprio, who started his own foundation to help causes of climate change as well. And what my idea is having a bunch of celebrities, not just celebrities, but people who believe in climate change and are activists and are always engaging in a political process, having a say, and mobilizing the youth and their votes. I think that's what we're missing. We're missing a way to firmly mobilize youth votes. And I think with enough collaboration between political figures as well as cultural figures, enough collaboration between those two entities has a chance of doing something more radical for our youth voters. We also want to talk about interest groups that, of course, going to be super helpful in this initiative. We need to receive information. We need to receive congressional support through lobbying as well. We need to see which other Congress people in the House are able to join us in this force, in this task to get another climate change bill on the floor. Like I said, Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation is doing that as well. The Clean Air Task Force is a huge group advocating for these things, and we have the Clean Energy Innovation Program at the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation, which is a renowned think tank that we can in which we can utilize their services to inform our bill accordingly. Basically, and this is going to be the final slide, voters will appreciate another go at climate change. I think because I am my age person I am, my gender, and I'm in a position where I can kind of speak about what voters are looking for, what voters of my age group are looking for. It's seeing this taken seriously. It's seeing climate change being proactively engaged in by our Congress people, and we're seeing a rebellion of these senior players that are not really looking to kind of change the status quo, and that's not what we want. We need a change in status quo, basically. Um, and I think voters, especially the young voters in our district, will appreciate um, us not giving up, us making sure that this is something that will repeatedly get on the floor until it is passed. And I think that's what voters will appreciate. Um, and will effectively increase our chances of re-election. I think it's a very democratic issue. It's a very moral issue. It's popular. We have champions like AOC and Bernie Sanders, not just I mean, they're already national figures because of these stances, because of their issues. They're not just known in their own congressional district, but they're known nationwide. And I think that's what we need to see in Strickland's next campaign, is kind of seeing how we can go nationwide, because I believe once our national voters start seeing that something good is being done here, then of course our state voters, our personal congressional voters will see that that we're effective, we're positive, we're looking to do a greater change. We're not looking to exploit the government, exploit interest. We're just looking to do something that will appease the people, that will appease the constituency. Um, I want to thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.